Hello students. So we are back with another part of that neural coordination chapter. I had explained up to I think the some parts of the brain. The forebrain was discussed and I told you that there will be another video on the rest half of the central nervous system. Um, it took some time for the next video to be uploaded because of my health not keeping so well. But we are back with another video. So in this video we are going to discuss about the rest half of central nervous system. So we had discussed about forebrain. So this time we are going to start with midbrain. So as you can see on my slide, I have already mentioned over here midbrain, which is the middle part of the brain. The other name of midbrain is mesencephalon. Mesencephalon, which means cephalon means brain, we have already discussed. Mesen means middle. In between the forebrain and the hindbrain lies the midbrain. Now this midbrain, it has got two main divisions, two main parts. Now on the ventral side, it has got crura cerebri. Crura cerebri, the other name of crura cerebri in your textbook you may find, it might be written cerebral peduncle. Crura cerebri or cerebral peduncle. Where is it located? On the ventral surface of midbrain. And what is actually crura cerebri or cerebral peduncle? These are bundles of nerve fibers which connect the cerebrum with other parts of the brain and spinal cord. So this is the main location. Actually, what is it? It's a bundle of nerve fibers which serve as a communication between the cerebrum with other parts of the brain. So crura cerebri or cerebral peduncle, as you can see, this is one part of midbrain. Now let me show you one picture. So this is the internal structure of brain, students. Now midbrain will be somewhere between the thalamus, which might be over here, and pons. So somewhere between this thalamus, hypothalamus region and pons. So over here we can find midbrain. Okay. Now midbrain, this portion is actually midbrain. So on the ventral surface, as I told you, there will be crura cerebri. Can we find crura cerebri marked over here? No, not like this, because it's difficult to mark in a diagram. But on the ventral side, that means on this side, crura cerebri can be found. On the dorsal side, what might be present is there can be four swellings. Four swellings might be present on this side of the midbrain, two superior and two inferior, and each swelling is called a colliculus. So see over here, it's written colliculi. Colliculi is the plural term. Colliculus is the singular term. So over here there is a swelling, as you can see. So we can assume that this surface consists of the four colliculi, two superior, which will be called corpora bigemina. The word corpora comes from the word corpus. Corpus means body. And bigemina, bi means two, which means there are two swollen bodies which are also called superior colliculi or corpora bigemina. So similarly, there will be two inferior colliculi also over here, which will be two inferior colliculi. So superior colliculi and inferior colliculi together, how many lobes are there? 4 then. So together they will be called corpora quadrigemina. Corpora quadrigemina. So let us go back to this chart. See over here it's written superior colliculi and inferior colliculi together called corpora quadrigemina. Why such a name? Quadri means 4. So that's why corpora quadrigemina. And these actually act as centers for certain visual reflexes. Sometimes auditory also, and sometimes mainly visual reflexes. So that is why corpora quadrigemina, often it is known as those 4 optic lobes, because it has some kind of a control over some visual reflexes. Okay, so this is all about midbrain. So what are the main functions? As you can see, crura cerebri, it connects, it serves as a communication between cerebrum and the rest parts of the brain. And corpora quadrigemina being the 4 optic lobes, it will be acting as a center for certain visual reflexes. So these are, and sometimes midbrain also it controls voluntary movements of the limbs, movements which are under our control, voluntary movements of our limbs. So these are the 3 main functions of mesencephalon or midbrain. Next comes hindbrain or rhombencephalon. Hindbrain consists of 3 main parts. So let us go back to that picture of internal structure of brain. So this is pons, as you can see the cursor. This is pons veroli, which is slightly swollen. From pons veroli arises the medulla oblongata, and on one side of pons veroli you can see cerebellum. Cerebellum. Now cerebellum, it has got 3 parts. Let me show you a magnified view of cerebellum. So this is cerebellum. Cerebellum has 2 lobes. So this is one lobe, this is another lobe, and each lobe is called hemisphere, just like cerebrum, but these are cerebellar hemisphere. Connecting the 2 lobes is a 3rd lobe, which is called the vermis. Vermis. So vermis is the 3rd lobe. It somehow acts as a communication, acts as a connection, as a joint between the 2 cerebellar hemispheres. You can see that the surface of cerebellum is also very folded. Why? Because it also has to accommodate a large number of neurons. So if it has a large number of folds, the surface area will increase and it will be able to accommodate more neurons. Okay, so this is cerebellar structure. Now since it is so much folded, so that sometimes it gives us an appearance of a tree-like structure. I'll go back to that picture. You can see in this picture there are certain tree branch-like structures in the cerebellum which are called arbor vitae. So arbor vitae is nothing due to the convolutions. The cerebellum assumes a tree with its branch-like appearance, that is called arbor vitae. Now, pons, what it does is, pons can, act as a communication between the two cerebellar hemispheres. Because a part of pons extends into the cerebellum, and that is why it can serve as a communication between two cerebellar hemispheres. So, pons, it can transmit impulses from one cerebellar hemisphere to the other. Now, what is the function of cerebellum? Cerebellum's function is it controls the balance and the posture of the body. So, let me go back to the slide. Cerebellum, it mainly controls the body balance and skillful voluntary movements. Of course, if it controls body balance, then those movements which require skill. Suppose a gymnast. Let us take an example of a gymnast. Just now we had the Tokyo Olympics, so we should be remembering the different flexible moves shown by different gymnasts. How do they manage? How do they strike a balance between one movement with the other? Definitely their cerebellum must be working actively to coordinate the movements, and their movements are very swift, very fast, and definitely those are skillful movements, because suddenly after being born we cannot do such movements. We need practice for that, we need skill for that, and definitely those movements are voluntary, definitely not involuntary. So cerebellum controls skillful voluntary movements because it controls the body balance. Another important function, how it controls body balance, is it gets impulses from ear, sense organ ear. It receives impulses from the semicircular canals. What are semicircular canals? Semicircular canals are certain canals that are present in the ear. And that part of the ear, semicircular canals, it is mainly concerned with maintenance of dynamic equilibrium of the body. Dynamic equilibrium means when the body is in motion. Then also we need a balance, otherwise we would fall. So impulses from semicircular canals reach cerebellum and the voluntary muscles, and that is how cerebellum controls body balance. Pons Veroli, I already told you, it serves as a connection between the two cerebellar hemispheres. Not only that, one of the main functions of pons is it controls breathing, it controls respiration. It is considered to be the pneumotaxic center. Pneumo is related to lungs. So pneumotaxic center means it controls breathing, it controls respiration. So this is a very important point of function of pons Veroli. Third part is medulla oblongata, which is the last part of hindbrain. In fact, last part of the entire brain. If I show you that picture, so medulla oblongata, it is the last part of hindbrain. Medulla oblongata is the center for all involuntary activities. It is the cardiovascular center, which means it will regulate heartbeat. Nerve impulses from medulla reach the heart, and then heartbeat is initiated. So if somehow medulla gets damaged, heartbeat will stop. That may lead to death of a person. Moreover, medulla controls gastric secretion, which means it has an influence over the stomach. whether the stomach will secrete digestive juices or not is controlled by medulla. So it is the cardiovascular center, it controls gastric secretion, it controls peristalsis, which means whether the food will go down through the esophagus, how it goes down, that is controlled by medulla oblongata. So different kinds of involuntary activities are controlled by medulla, which means it has a control over the smooth muscles, very unlike to the cerebrum. Cerebrum is the seat of voluntary actions. Medulla oblongata is the seat of involuntary actions. So if somehow medulla oblongata gets damaged, that may cause a very fatal consequence. The person may die. So this is all about parts of brain. These are the main parts, their locations, their functions of brain. Moving on to the next part, and that is spinal cord. So the next part of central nervous system is actually spinal cord. Spinal cord, the other name is myelin. Let me tell you one thing, like brain, spinal cord is also covered by meninges, which means dura mater, arachnoid, and that pia mater. These three membranes are present over spinal cord also. And one more thing I would like to tell you, arachnoid is a typical mammalian character. Arachnoid is found in mammals. Okay? In other mammals, arachnoid may or may not be present. I mean, in other animals, it may or may not be present, but in mammals, arachnoid is present. Now, this medulla oblongata, if we go back to that picture, medulla oblongata, it extends through the foramen magnum. What is foramen magnum? It's a hole at the back of the cranium. So through there, the medulla oblongata comes out, emerges, and enters into the hollow space of spinal cord or the vertebral column, which is the neural canal. So it comes out through foramen magnum, enters into neural canal of the vertebral column, and then when it passes through neural canal, then we can call it spinal cord. So let me show you one picture. So this is the transverse section of human spinal cord. As you can see, in case of brain, the gray matter is situated outside. White matter is situated towards the center. Rather than using the word outside, it's better to use the word periphery. So the external part of brain was mainly composed of gray matter, and the internal part mainly composed of white matter. In case of spinal cord, it's reverse. Most part of the spinal cord, the bulk of spinal cord is made up of white matter, and sometimes gray matter, it comes to the surface. Majority is white matter, so some part of the gray matter comes to the surface, assumes an H-shaped appearance. So this is the H-shaped appearance, and this is the gray matter. So in case of spinal cord, white matter is predominant towards the periphery, gray matter at the center. And just at the center of gray matter, there is an opening, there is a hollow tube, which is called the central canal. And through this central canal, cerebrospinal fluid flows. Okay? Now this spinal cord, if we see a picture carefully, it has got two enlargements. It has got, I can also draw over here, it has got two enlargements. Like, I would like to show you one thing. Like this. I think my picture will be there, so I'll better rub it off. Let me draw it somewhere over here. So there are two enlargements. One is towards the cervix, cervix in the sense cervical part over here, which is called the cervical enlargement. As you can see, I have already mentioned over here, cervical enlargement, and it extends from the fourth cervical vertebra to the first thoracic vertebra, and then comes the lumbar enlargement, which extends from the ninth thoracic vertebra to the 12th thoracic vertebra. So this is the cervical enlargement, and this one lumbar enlargement. Now if we study transverse section of spinal cord, we will get to see this picture. Now here there are certain enlargements. In transverse section also there are certain swollen junctions, swollen regions. Like this part is swollen and this part is swollen on the lateral halves. So we can call them lateral horns, kind of projections. So this is one lateral horn, this is another lateral horn. The upper part is called the dorsal horn. Upper, or this is generally considered as the back part as it goes down, and the lower part is called the ventral. So upper part dorsal, the lower part is called the ventral. Now through the dorsal side, sensory neurons come in, and through the ventral side, motor neurons go out. So let me show you that slide once more. See, it's written dorsal horn, it receives the sensory neurons. Lateral horns, it gives rise to the sympathetic nerves which will reach sympathetic ganglia. And ventral horn gives rise to somatic nerves, which means it goes to the skeletal muscles. So from the ventral horn, the nerves arise, they reach skeletal muscles and modulate their activity. So these are the three main types of horns in myelin, in transverse section of spinal cord. Now through the center, I told you, central canal is there which contains cerebrospinal fluid. What are the functions? Functions are of spinal cord is, it acts as a bridge between the brain and the different organs, because from spinal cord certain nerve fibers together, they go up to the brain, and those nerve fibers are called ascending tracts. From spinal cord they carry the messages to the brain, and there are certain nerves which from brain come to spinal cord to supply to different other organs, and those nerve cords, those nerve tracts, are called descending tracts. Since from brain they are coming down, so they will be called descending tracts. So two types of nerve tracts emerging from spinal cord: ascending going to the brain, descending coming down. So these are the main functions. Another function is, spinal cord is the seat, is the center for reflex action. It is the center for reflex action. Now if we study the origin of spinal nerves, we will get to see this. Let me show you one picture. So this is roughly a picture of origin of spinal nerves. So this is the dorsal root through which sensory neurons come, and they come in the form of a tract, a heavy tract which is called ramus dorsalis. They reach spinal cord. From spinal cord the ventral root arises. And these ventral roots, they take out the motor neurons which pass out ultimately through the ramus ventralis. So ramus dorsalis entering spinal cord, ramus ventralis leaving the spinal cord. In between these, I mean just beside spinal cord, there is a chain of ganglia, sympathetic ganglia. So what happens is, a nerve branch called ramus communicans comes and it connects the different ganglia which are present on the sides of the spinal cord. So this is the transverse section and the whole section of spinal cord. Now, when the spinal cord ends, it ends in a very conical manner which is called conus medullaris. As such, there is no picture at this moment available, but the spinal cord, it narrows down to form conus medullaris. And this conus medullaris extends up to the first and the second lumbar vertebra. So, this is all about the spinal cord. So we have completed brain, we have completed spinal cord. Now one more thing regarding brain. Now within brain there are certain cavities which are called ventricles. Till now we have been acquainted with the term ventricle present only in heart. No, ventricles are also present in brain. So So as I was telling you, the ventricles of brain. So let me show you this one. Yes, so these are the ventricles of the brain. Now, cerebrum, if it is cut longitudinally, it gives us two hemispheres. So that's what is shown over here. If the cerebrum is cut longitudinally, it is giving us these two hemispheres like this, as if it's like a book. Each hemisphere is a ventricle, a lateral ventricle. So there are two lateral ventricles. So each one of them has been numbered. So this is the first ventricle. This is the second ventricle. First and second together, they communicate with the third ventricle which is present in the region of diencephalon. How do they communicate? So, how do they communicate? Now the ventricles, they communicate by certain ducts, okay? So the first and the second ventricle, they communicate with the third ventricle by foramen of Monro. foramen of Monro. So this is basically foramen of Monro. Foramen means a small opening, small aperture. So through foramen Monro, the lateral ventricles communicate with the third ventricle. Third ventricle and the fourth ventricle, they communicate by iter or cerebral aqueduct. Iter or cerebral aqueduct communicates the third and the fourth ventricle. Fourth ventricle later on becomes continuous with the central canal of spinal cord, and that is why cerebrospinal fluid flows in brain as well as in spinal cord, because ventricles are actually the regions where this fluid can flow. This fluid can, circulate. Now, where from this fluid is coming? You see, the walls of these ventricles are composed of ciliated columnar epithelium. So the cells of the ciliated columnar epithelium secrete this kind of fluid, cerebrospinal fluid. This cerebrospinal fluid more or less circulates within the ventricles, and as a result, brain and spinal cord gets the nourishment from this CSF, cerebrospinal fluid. Apart from that, how does it get the nourishment? There should be something in CSF. So the composition of CSF is, it contains glucose, it contains proteins, it contains amino acids, urea, sodium, potassium. These useful substances are present in CSF. And also it carries oxygen, and that is why such critical patients, they can still survive. Cerebrospinal fluid carries oxygen because there is no other way. Blood vessels cannot go in and supply blood. As a result, oxygen also, no. So this is all about the lateral or maybe the ventricles of brain. So midbrain, hindbrain we have learned, spinal cord we have done, and lastly I discussed about the four ventricles, first, second. These two together, they are called lateral ventricles, third one and the fourth one. So there are four total ventricles in human brain. So this much for today. Again we'll start with the next part of the chapter in the next video. Okay, till then, bye bye.